Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of Inside Harvard Football. Bernie Corbett, as always, getting ready to kick off our time with Tim this week with Harvard head coach Tim Murphy. We'll take a look back to what happened on the streets of New York last week and certainly a look ahead to what will transpire at the stadium this week with the Crimson hosting the Quakers of Penn. And, Coach, amazing to note that after all you've been through this year, and I stress the all with a capital A-L-L, that you were in a similar position to where you were last season, a chance to control your own destiny in the final 2 weeks, not looking ahead. Let's just say the final week right now is what it is with Penn, but to control your own destiny for a piece of that Ivy League title, and did that without being able to withstand, once again, some rather extensive adversity at Columbia to come away with that victory.
Well, no question about it, Bernie. A very interesting game, to say the least, what with throwing 4 interceptions virtually in the first quarter, a ton of flags flying, and really having to go down to the last play of the game by knocking down 2 consecutive passes by sophomore linebacker Joey Goodman, who wasn't even in the equation at the beginning of the year on the 2 deep. It was a really impressive victory from an intangible standpoint. For a lot of reasons, we're still a work in progress as a football team, but, we've developed some grit, we've developed some callous. The kids play with a lot of pride, and the way our defense has stepped up has been nothing short of heroic the past two games.
The defensive numbers just staggering in terms of what they're able to accomplish against a very formidable, as we talked about last week, as your expectations were, Columbia offense. 8 sacks for the defense, held Columbia 1 for 12 on third down conversions, 1 for 5 on fourth down, held them to just 2.7 yards per rush. And right at the forefront, you hate to single out one guy, but Richie Ryan's performance in particular, I mean, did somebody kidnap Aaron Donald? I mean, he was just absolutely a dominating effort from the defensive front for Ryan, and much deserved Ivy League Defensive Player of the Week, leading the charge along with guys like Stone Hart and Alex Whitefoy up front. They were immense.
Well, the defensive line in general played tremendously well. We had 19 hits on the quarterback, including 8 sacks, which is an amazing performance. And, Richie's become the bell cow. He's one of those tough, gritty, hard-nosed, Pittsburgh Central Catholic kids. And, there's bigger kids, there's this or that kids. Maybe the metrics don't fit, but he's just a tremendous football player. People love his attitude, and I think he makes everybody play up a little bit higher just based on his attitude and intensity.
Your captain, Luke Hutton, led the team with 12 tackles. I remember I had Luke on the program earlier in the year and asked about one of his tweets that he sent out when Rob Ninkovich retired. He put it right out there. He said, well, I guess Richie Ryan is the best defensive lineman wearing number 50 in Boston. He might have been onto something, Coach, back in September.
No question about it. But the bottom line is that, that's been a resilient group. There had to be. We certainly have a lot less depth, but guys like Stone Hart, guys like Adam White, guys like Richie Ryan, guys like Stuart Johnson, they've become incredibly important parts of the defense, and they've stepped up and they've played well, and they will have to continue to do so.
You've been hit hard at all units defensively. You just noted to me, Coach, overall 12 players off the 2 deep defensively that have been injured. And a big swing play. Cole Thompson's interception proved to be a huge momentum swing in the game.
No question. You lose guys in the secondary like Zach Miller, like Toby Ezekoli, like Wes Augsbury, and those guys are all starter-capable guys. And to have a guy like Cole come off the IR list to become a good player for us the last couple of games is really important.
On the offensive side, Coach, Joe Viviano, your veteran, he comes out of the bullpen for you. Just to give us a little bit of insight about what that was like. And I really got to give him, I would think, just from afar, a tremendous amount of credit for, being ready in that situation with Jake Smith obviously getting the bulk of the time through recent weeks.
Well, no question about it. I have a lot of respect for Joe. prior to this, I've had a lot of respect for Joe. He's had a lot of challenges in his 5 years here. He's had, 3 or 4 surgeries, and, has fought his way to be a fifth-year senior and obviously competed for the job. And the bottom line is he may not have had an overwhelming performance, but he gave us great leadership. He gave us great attitude, and he gutted out. And it wasn't always pretty offensively, but we were definitely a better football team in this particular game with Joe at the helm.
And a big, once again, big play. You had one in particular with Viviano hooking up with Henry Taylor. Taylor's become more of as you've looked to different areas on both sides of the ball, Taylor's a guy that's really emerged for you and shown some big play impact potential.
No question about it. And all of a sudden, with Hank Taylor on one side and Justice Shelton Mosey on the other, it definitely gives us a dynamic presence with both wide receivers. And obviously, you're not throwing Adam Scott out there. We just have got to do a better job getting the ball to those guys. We've got to do a better job balancing the offense, running the football, so we'll get some good opportunities to throw. We're still not quite in sync yet offensively. We've got some good players. We just have to take the next step, and a lot of it comes down to being able to effectively run the ball so you get some good looks to throw.
You also made a big play converting a 2-point conversion. Just to take us inside of that, I know you've got maybe certain favorites that you have in that situation that you, Coach Lamb, are able to pull up and go to in those situations when you really got to have it?
Yeah, it's an oldie but goodie. It's what we call trips right, Reno, Toronto, and that's going to be against a man coverage team. We're going to sprint out to the right. The tight end's going to block the 1,001 count. He's going to make it look like he trips. 1,001, 1,002. Let the weak side corner fly by with the shallow cross, and if you call it in the right situation, and against this team who played as much man as they did, we thought it would be the right situation. He's obviously all alone in the backside of the left end zone.
And there it was. That turned out to be a critical swing in the game. Mentioned about the defensive performance, and you certainly noted that you were without a voice by the end of it, and just coming down right down the stretch the way that it did on that last drive. There was just a roller coaster of emotion, if you will, on that last drive, as you mentioned, right to the final play, and Goodman able to break up a couple of tosses that Hill had at the end.
Yeah, I mean, they had been obviously a momentum change. We didn't want to give them the ball again, and all of a sudden they got a couple first downs. They're rolling. The clock is ticking down. They're out of timeouts, and something's got to give. And once they got to the red zone, we made play after play, and having to come up with 2 huge ones that you alluded to, with Joey Goodman knocking down a couple balls. And if he hadn't knocked them down, it would not have been pretty.
And also, Coach, I got to, the proverbial, I guess, coming into it, coming out of it, the old Dennis Green question, if you will, as far as Columbia and who they were. You had great respect for them, what Coach Bagnoli's done in a relatively short time. And I suspect your answer is probably you got a lot of respect for them coming out in terms of the road that this football team is on right now. Columbia, they're certainly on the rise.
There's no question about it. They've got some outstanding athletes. They're well coached in all phases, and a lot of it comes down to the quarterback play, and they've got a good quarterback. He's a senior. At least I hope he's a senior, and he's done. They're bringing good young players into the program. They've had tremendous support from their alumni administration, and they will definitely be a force to be reckoned with in our league.
You ever see a game like that where there was really only one sustained scoring drive in the entire game, and that kind of a disjointed quality to it? But I guess, Coach, you're around as long as you've been. You see just about everything eventually.
Yeah, and I hope to see a lot more, Bernie. But just don't want to tempt fate with another game like that in terms of the way we started it.
Indeed. And, Coach, as if we didn't know coming in that the Harvard-Penn game was going to factor in the league race, and I guess neither one of us have been paying attention to what's been going on in Ivy League football for the past 25 years or so. And so it is with the Penn Quakers coming to the stadium on Saturday. They're coming in with a ton of momentum. And be curious to get your perspective on what you saw from their victory with Princeton, a game that was not without controversy down to the final seconds.
Well, they're a very good football team, and I think they would be the first one to admit that they feel like they should have more wins. They've had some really tough last-second losses, and all of a sudden they're playing at a high level. They definitely have a lot of momentum coming out of a big, huge rivalry win over Princeton, and they're playing their best offense and defense of the year. So this will be a more veteran, slightly more talented, and definitely a team that's playing at their high peak level of the season team, even better team than Columbia. No surprise when you consider they're back-to-back Ivy League champions.
Indeed, you mentioned offensively a rather daunting number that I'm sure you made note of, that we'll make note of, the fact that they ran for 317 yards against Princeton, controlled the ball for over 36 minutes, 30 first downs. And, oh, by the way, they've got an All-American with the ground game functioning at that level. They've got an All-American wide receiver with Justice Watson.
Yeah, they're back to where they should be, and it will be. It'll be certainly one of our most difficult tasks this season. When we played Princeton, they were certainly on a roll, and they're a great offensive team. This will be a very challenging game for us. We feel like we have the attitude we can beat anyone. Anyone this week happens to be a very good Penn football team.
And anyone, and under, I would dare to say, under any circumstance, it'd be tough to give these guys anything else in terms of adversity and have them say anything but, well, yeah, okay, we'll see what we can do there. We'll handle that because of what they've been through so far.
Yeah, no question about it. One thing at a time, one day at a time. But it'll certainly be an interesting game.
And Coach, the way it's shaping up here is we head into the, as I always like to say at this time, the penultimate game for Harvard on the schedule. I guess pun intended. It's going to be. Looks like it'll be a chilly after we've had this unseasonable Indian summer. Looks like we're going to get kind of a chilly late season type of football feel to it on Saturday. I know that's something you'll embrace.
Well, it's football weather as far as I'm concerned, Bernie. And somehow every time you play Penn, you seem to get that cold north wind.
Indeed. Hopefully the Crimson will be able to seize the moment and handle that. Coach, thanks very much. We appreciate our time with Tim, and we look forward to Saturday and hope everybody in Crimson Nation will be turning out and getting out to the stadium to support this very, as you mentioned, heroic Crimson team as they get ready to battle the Quakers on Saturday. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Bernie.
Coach Tim Murphy kicking off with us this week. Our time with Tim on Inside Harvard Football. We'll be back. Welcome back, everyone, to this week's edition of Inside Harvard Football. Bernie Corbett pleased to be joined in our player profile segment this week by none other than the Ivy League Defensive Player of the Week for his considerable efforts against Columbia last week in the Crimson's 21-14 victory. The defensive tackle, junior from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Central Catholic High School of Pittsburgh, Richie Ryan. Richie, welcome to the show. Glad you could spend some time with us this week.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor.
Well, it's an honor to be talking to a guy that went out and had such a prolific game last week. We'll get to that in a moment, but want to get to your roots from Pittsburgh football country, Pittsburgh Central Catholic High School, and actually I'll link all the way back, if you will, to Coach Murphy's very first team and very first championship team to that high school.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know if any of the fans know, but the only ever two-time captain of Harvard football was a Pittsburgh Central Catholic alum, Brendan Bebro. And, just based on us being from the same area, going to the same high school, we become pretty good friends. And it's pretty unbelievable to look at the Pittsburgh Central Catholic legacy in connection to Harvard, and Harvard football in particular.
Indeed, from the, once again, Coach Murphy's first class and first class to win the Ivy League championship back in 1997, all the way down to the present day. That long crimson line and a link back to Western Pennsylvania. Doesn't get any better than that.
Exactly.
No question. And Richie, as far as your recruitment to Harvard, I'm always intrigued to get the story behind the story, if you will, about how the Harvard experience came to be for you, and how did that all come about in terms of you getting exposure to the program and getting the great opportunity?
Yeah, so I was looking mostly at Ivy League schools, a couple Patriot League. At the end of the recruiting process, it really came down to Harvard and Penn. I took series visits to both, and Penn was closer to home, and Philly's only about 4 hours from Pittsburgh, and so I took a visit to Penn. I really loved it, and I came up to Harvard thinking, I don't know if this is going to be for me. I really liked Penn. It's closer to home. The coaches were great, and I felt that way until I had my one-on-one with Coach Murphy, and I can honestly say that Coach Murphy was the main reason I decided to come to Harvard, other than just the unbelievable name and education and legacy. So I have to owe it to Coach Murphy. He really convinced me, and it was the best decision I've ever made.
Well, indeed it was, and I know. I think I can speak for Coach Murphy. I spoke to him today. I think he's probably pretty happy about it too, that you made that decision.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think so. Rest assured. And great. You played on both sides of the ball in high school on the O and the D line, and attained no small feat. All conference status, second team in 2013, first team in 2014, and also no stranger to championship play, winning a high school championship. That must have been particularly a great thrill to do that out there in football country.
Oh, yeah, I'll never forget. I had the opportunity to play at Heinz Field for the Western PA Championship my junior and senior year. Wow. Junior year we won, and we lost in the state championship to St. Joe's Prep. And I had the opportunity to play senior year again. We lost, but just great opportunities, and just Central Catholic's great high school program.
And, of course, the fact that you had the Ivy Leagues, the Patriot League, etc., also a National Honor Society, and excelled academically. And now you've taken that on to Harvard, and I believe your pursuit, your main interest has been in government.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm concentrating in government right now. I really love it.
Great to hear. And as far as your career at Harvard, I remember, I always, the old-fashioned way in my weekly depth chart, I know I had you penciled in, and you got some action your freshman year, which is sometimes unusual for a guy to get in and become an impact guy. You became more of an impact guy last year as a sophomore, and really part of what has been a hallmark of Coach Murphy's teams and Coach Larkey's defenses. It's almost, I have a background also in hockey and football. It's almost like line changes in the terms of the fact that there's a defensive line rotation. Coach Murphy likes to be able to go 8, sometimes 10 deep.
Yeah. So in high school, it was odd coming in a program that did that in high school. You played the whole game O line, the whole game D line, and I got to college and they were rotating guys. Different series. 4 new guys going in, and I know Coach Horan, Michael Horan, the D line coach, and Coach Murphy talked about that, and they think it's the best way to keep the D line fresh. And after 3 years, I tend to agree. So it's really interesting, and I think it works for us.
Yeah, the concept of fresh horses and being able to wear teams down really it's tough to underestimate that, Richie. I'm sure it has something you've come to focus on the last couple of years in terms of being effective.
Yeah, I really like. I think it definitely helps with pass rush, get a little more explosiveness, some fresh legs. So I definitely agree with it.
And of course, this year, bringing us right up to date, you've been a part of now your third Harvard team now as a junior, and I've been part of calling games now for almost 20 years. Coach Murphy for almost 25. Suffice it to say, this has truly been a unique year for the Crimson in terms of challenges that you've faced. And particularly, you talk about being able to go 8 and 10 deep on the D line. The depth of this team has really been tested over the course of the year, and particularly on the defensive side.
Yeah. We always suffer injuries. Coach Murphy's always talking about adversity, whether it's in a game or throughout the season. And we've had a lot of great players go down, but it's always next man up. Coach Murphy's always calling us, and we're the team really believes in it, and we believe any player can play any position and we can beat anyone. So,
indeed, it's been proven, particularly in the last couple of weeks here, as we bring it right up to date. And truth be told, there's been, I believe, about a dozen players from that defensive depth chart. I know just from doing my depth chart every week, putting names in, crossing names out. It made me pretty busy too, just to keep up with the rotation and guys that have come in. And not just come in, but have played a lot of quality minutes, quality time overall.
Yeah, I mean it's really a testament to our coaches. The starting players don't get any better coaching tips or pointers than the 13 guys, and we always keep our depth fresh, and they always know the particular game plan for that week, and they practice the same fundamentals we practice. So I'd have to attribute that to the coaches for sure.
It's been one of those years. It's as we like to say about been popular all the way down through the ranks, different levels of football. Next man up. It's been next men up, truth be told, for the Crimson this year with the number of guys that have come in and played.
Yeah, it's truly unbelievable. But we will play with whoever we got, and we're never doubting ourselves.
Coaches look at players in college. It's a unique situation where the improvement from year to year. I think the most gratifying thing is to watch guys get better, become more of an impact player, more trusted members of successful teams. You've really personified that. You currently have 37 tackles, so you got a career high number of tackles for the season. But I don't think that anybody, maybe even yourself, in your wildest dreams, unless you maybe dreamed about it in terms of what a defensive tackle's dream is, that you'd go out on Saturday and I think do a fair impression of Aaron Donald.
I can't believe you mentioned him. He's my absolute hero from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Penn Hills local school. He played against my high school when he played, and University of Pittsburgh hero. Obviously plays for the Rams now, and believe it or not, I watch his highlight tape before every game. And thank you so much for mentioning him because he's
quite all right.
Absolute hero. Absolute hero.
Well, there's a guy. I guess that answers one of my questions. A lot of times I'll ask guys, is there anybody you have as a mentor at the highest level in the NFL or model yourself? Well, I guess that question's been answered, Counselor. We can move on to the next witness.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you had, I don't know if you had a day or you had a career on Saturday. I'll mention the numbers. 11 tackles. That's enough right there. But 2.5 sacks credited, 3.5 tackles for loss, and forced a fumble. I mean, that's a day that I think would make any defensive player, let alone any defensive tackle, would be proud to have that type of day, or even to have to live up to. So I guess the obvious question I got to ask was, sometimes you ask guys, hitters or pitchers or quarterbacks or goaltenders, I'll ask you about being in the zone. What type of day was it for you? Did you have any special feeling going in there that, hey, this could be my day, or I feel like it's on my shoulders that I'm going to be able to make an impact? Or what was all that like? Because what you amassed in terms of your overall production was just immense.
Yeah, so I really liked the game plan that week, and I think we had a great week of practice. We were really getting after each other in our team periods, offense versus defense, and I think that definitely helped the game plan. I know there were a lot of my parents were there. There were a lot of alumni there from previous years, and there was a whole bunch of motivation. And we went in. We knew we had the advantage of our defensive line against their offensive line, and I really felt like I could make a difference. And I did my best, and I think it was a great team win.
Indeed, and of course 8 total sacks is that's just a huge number for a team on any given week. One of your partners in crime there, Stone Hart, also with a big game on the inside. But just a number of guys. You look at Alex White and going right up and down. It must have been tremendously gratifying for you as a defense to know how much of a factor you were in deciding that one.
Oh yeah, I could talk. My fellow D linemen are absolutely unbelievable. Like you said, Stone Hart, just an unbelievable guy, unbelievable strength, just unbelievable pursuit to the ball. Getting to the quarterback. Alex White the same way. We just got so many great guys. John Pierman, Tristan Thomaseb, just Stu Johnson. So many great DNs, D tackles that can make a difference. And I was just lucky to be in on that great win.
And a game that went right to the wire, right to the final play. And it was with the Harvard defense, really holding the fort there, literally and figuratively at the end. The experience on your side, it seemed like never wavered, though, that everybody was cool in their assignments and in the moment.
Yeah, like I said, I think that we had a great game plan. Our coaches really drew up a great game plan. I personally really loved it. I got to credit Joey Goodman, number 59.
Yes.
2 unbelievable back-to-back plays. And we knew what we had to do. We executed, and it was really fun to be a part of.
Got to also mention with the performance the last 2 weeks on the defensive side, and Coach Murphy, I don't think at all hyperbolic to say heroic performance by the guys, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, and an exciting game against Dartmouth the week before that went right down to the wire. Also, the defense, the frame of mind after the game against Princeton, just to give us a little bit of insight as to what that was like, because it's just been amazing to see. It's so gratifying to see the fact that the way, obviously you guys, that was a game that must have hurt deeply, to be able to bounce back the way that you did, and to be as resilient as you guys have, to put yourselves right in a position right now that you can still have a piece of that title.
Yeah, so after the Princeton game, it was a tough loss, especially for the defense. We came in the next day, and Coach Lucky really said some powerful things that I think everyone could get behind. He said we can't be worrying about our place in the Ivy League. We have to focus on our individual position and getting better at each position every day. And I think that really spoke to everyone in the defense. And from then on, we've had unbelievable practices, great enthusiasm, and I think that's shown up on Saturdays. And you know, we don't focus about our place in the Ivy League, but obviously focusing on our individual positions has led us to the place we're in now, where we can possibly share this title.
And for you guys that are veterans, as I talked to Coach Murphy about, deja vu all over again. Very similar position to where you were last year, coming into your final 2 games with the title right there in your own control and your own destiny.
Yeah, from my experience, been here now 3 years. Penn, regardless of our position, Penn and Yale, any Ivy League opponent, it just feels every week feels like a championship week, especially opponent,
yep.
An Ivy League opponent, especially Penn and Yale. Penn's personal for me. Like I said, I almost went there. I'm still close with some of their coaches, and it's a near home, so that's personal for me. And Yale, of course. But any Ivy League game, it feels like championship every week, and that's what's so special about Ivy League football.
Next challenge will be Penn, and have you begun to break that one down here to get ready, Richie, in terms of what that Penn offense is going to look like on Saturday?
Yeah, Penn has great legacy, great program. They got a great team this year. Our coaches have made another great game plan. We're really digging into it now. Just got done watching some film, of course, and I think it's going to be a great game.
Well, it should be, and particularly now that we know a little bit of a personal interest for you in terms of what your decision was. And often my involvement, once again, almost 20 years, the decision as far as the Ivy League crown or a piece of that crown has come down. Harvard-Penn game has been a key game. It will be again this Saturday. And it will be football weather forecast on Saturday. It'll be a little bit more fall-like, football-like, with a little bit of a chill in the air. We've had this lingering Indian summer, but you'll probably close your eyes and feel like you might be back on one of those Friday night lights in Western PA.
Oh, yeah, it'll be perfect. I can remember my junior year when we won at Heinz Field, the Western PA Championship. We came out after halftime, and it was clear before. And we came out, and you couldn't see 10 feet in front of you. The snow was that thick, and we had to cleat our cleats on the mud cleat thingy on the sideline before every play, just to get any kind of footing. It was a great game.
Indeed. And just one other note that I have to make. When I talked to Luke Hutton earlier in the year, and I was checking out Luke, his Twitter account, and he made reference, maybe prophetic, when Rob Ninkovich stepped down, retired from the Patriots. I believe he said the best number 50 defensive lineman in Boston is now my roommate, Richie Ryan. So I guess he wasn't too far off.
Yeah. I know our my defensive line coach, Coach Mike Horan, mentioned that as well. And that was a great honor. Kind of funny, but a great honor.
Indeed. Well, you lived up to it, and more so over the course of this year, and particularly with a big impact last week. And keep up the good work, my friend, and best to you and that Crimson D-line and the Crimson overall. Really looking forward to Saturday. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun there at the stadium. Will be rocking.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Richie Ryan, our Crimson profile this week. He is the Ivy League Defensive Player of the Week from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the junior defensive tackle here on Inside Harvard Football. We'll be back. Welcome back, everyone, to this week's edition of Inside Harvard Football. Bernie Corbett pleased to be joined in our special segment this week by James Frazier. He is the Crimson's strength and conditioning coach and has been with the Crimson since 2009 when he was hired back in the winter of 2009 to come in and handle all things strength and conditioning, coordinate for the Harvard program overall. When I talk about the athletic program at Harvard, you're talking about 41 sports and 1,200 athletes. And James has coordinated that, of course, with his special focus on Coach Tim Murphy's Harvard football program. James, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
In particular, great to have you with us today because the Crimson are involved in the amazing race, I guess we could call it, for the Ivy League pennant for 2017. I don't think anybody who's been an observer of the Ivy League, maybe all the way back to 1956, can remember anything quite this crazy coming into the final 2 weeks of the season. And you've certainly been right there at the forefront and working with the Crimson to see them in a position now to be masters of their own fate, to have a piece of that championship. It's been quite a turnaround and for the program, and Coach Murphy's team has showed tremendous resiliency.
Absolutely. It's been a very different year than anything we've ever experienced. Obviously, being here since the 2009 season, it was one of the first times that, we had some really early setbacks and then turn around and to still be in the race this late in the season. It speaks to the character of these kids in terms of, their work ethic, their ability to continue to fight back and to scratch and claw. And, obviously the Ivy League as a whole, the disparity is kind of shortened down, and now every team can beat any team on any given day. And we're just really thankful to be, in the race at this part of the season.
And really, to get your perspective, I think would be particularly compelling because of somebody that has been involved with Ivy League football for as long as you have. And going back to your playing days, I remember well as a guy that terrorized Ivy League offenses from your position, first as a defensive end, then as a linebacker for Mike Kelleher's defense down at Brown. And also had the opportunity back in 2005 with the Bears, banner year 9-1, and winning an Ivy League championship. Your perspective on how the Ivy League has changed as you looked at it from a player just a little over a decade ago to where it is now. It just seems like there's a bushel of good players out there that are making the decision to become student athletes at Ivy League institutions.
Absolutely. Finding the high quality athlete for the Ivy League has changed dramatically. From the fact that when I was being recruited, I sent VHS tapes out to different schools, and so now, all the information is readily found on the internet. And, these guys were able to kind of send their information out and the giant databases of kids. And so, I'm not sure now, here 10, 12 years later, if I would even be able to play in the Ivy League at this point. These guys are so athletic, so fast. Look at the past trend of the number of Ivy League players playing in the NFL right now. It's different. Different caliber athlete, different, guys are a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, a little bit stronger. I was a 6-foot defensive end, and I don't think we have a single, other than maybe Richie Ryan, we don't have a single, defensive lineman under 6'2", 6'3",
It's pretty amazing how that's evolved. And as far as your story, James, it's always, I think, intriguing to see what route players take from high school to have, obviously, the golden opportunity that it is to get an Ivy League education to play football. What about your personal story and the opportunity you had to go down to Brown and play in the Ivy League?
Yeah, absolutely. I went to school in the suburbs of Chicago. Even though I grew up on the south side of Chicago, we moved out to the suburbs for high school, and the Ivy Leagues weren't anywhere on my radar. I was very fortunate to be a straight A student and number one in my class coming out of high school, but it wasn't until some of the Ivy League coaches started showing up at my high school, telling me about the Ivy League football that I gave it really any thought. I kind of thought I was going to try to go walk on somewhere at one of the major level schools, and after kind of being exposed to the level of play in the Ivy League, it was one of those things where it was a no-brainer for me. I had an opportunity to take official visits to a couple of different schools within the league. And for me at that time, Brown University happened to end up being the choice for me, And so I went on my official visit there, met Coach Justice and Mike Kelleher and all those guys. And, it was really good for me,
Yeah, the rest was history. And once again, winning a coveted Ivy League championship, something you take with pride. You walk with that. As they say, the champions walk forever, and you can walk with that 2005 crown forever and know that you were part of something special.
Exactly, especially because my freshman year, we went 2-8. We started the year 0-8 as freshmen. Then we won our last 2 games. We were very fortunate there, and to turn that around from being 2-8 as freshmen to Ivy League champion as seniors, that was, for us, it was my 2006 class at Brown. It was very special.
And after Brown, what about the decision that you made to get involved where you have been involved and thrived as somebody that's been foremost in the field of strength and conditioning? How did that all come about in terms of that opportunity and being able to pursue that goal?
Absolutely. When I was in college, our strength coach, Roger Marandino, was pivotal in my decision to want to become a strength coach. He was a guy that meant a lot to me during my 4 years there. And, it kind of got me thinking to myself, I really enjoy my time in the weight room. I really want to try to make an impact on, young student athletes' lives. And so what better way to do that than getting involved in coaching in some regards? And so I thought to myself, do I want to go the football route and actually become like a position coach, or do I want to go the strength and conditioning route? And then for me, it was easy because as a strength coach, outside of the head coach, you're the only person on staff who deals with all the student athletes at one time, right? So you're not worried about just offense, just defense, or just special teams, but every single student that comes through the football program, I get to interact with on a day-to-day basis. And so for me, that was one of the easiest decisions I made, was to say, okay, well, I want to step out in the strength and conditioning field. I was fortunate enough to be able to work for Mike Boyle during my time in college as an intern. From there, I got a job with the Chicago Bulls for a very brief period of time before moving on to University of Iowa, and Chris Doyle, who really shaped kind of everything that I believe about strength and conditioning before Coach Murphy found me out at Iowa and was able to bring me here to Harvard.
You had some great people and people that I'm familiar with. Chris Doyle, former local guy, Boston area guy, Quincy, and played at Boston University. And, of course, Mike Boyle, noted as really strength and conditioning guru with everything that he's done. You had some pro exposure and built a tremendous resume to have the opportunity to come back to I guess you could say New England, your adopted home.
Exactly. It's been absolutely great out here.
And back to Harvard in 2009, and once again a daunting task to not only take over the responsibility with Harvard football, but just coordinating. I think people might be surprised the fact that Harvard does field the most intercollegiate sports teams represented in 41 across the board than any other college in the country. That's one you might win a couple of bets with, James. I think a lot of people don't know the magnitude of what the scope of what this Harvard athletic program is all about overall.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that actually really, really intriguing about this job initially is the fact that, to get to run a strength and conditioning program for the largest athletic department in the country. And, a couple of years ago, we actually added women's rugby as a varsity program. So now we're actually up to 42 intercollegiate varsity sports at Harvard. Yep. So it's crazy. And, so who knows what's going to happen in the future? They're always looking to figure out different ways to bring in possibly more sports. And so, we're the largest department, and we potentially could be getting larger, depending upon how everything goes,
And truly, you are, and you mentioned about interacting with all of the players at all the positions, as opposed to a position coach, and extending that to all the athletes across the board that represent Crimson, wear the jersey, wear the sweater across the board. And for that, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that you're truly in a teaching and instructional position, and that you won the 2011 Dean's Distinction Award, Faculty Arts and Science Staff, for hard work, skillful collaboration. I think that's quite a testament to your ability to be able to communicate, since such a big part of your job is communicating and being able to get your philosophy across to the student athlete.
Absolutely. The department as a whole, we have a big push on educating these student athletes through athletics. And in strength and conditioning, that's kind of the thing that we want to make sure that we really push forward. We want to make sure that the student athletes leave here with a great amount of information in terms of why we're doing the things that we're doing here in strength and conditioning, the life lessons that kind of extend out of the weight room from hard work, accountability, work ethic, all those different types of things, and just trying to take this information and kind of get them to a point where health and wellness, nutrition, sleep, all those different things are kind of being taught, as well as, trying to improve their overall on-field performance or decrease their risk of injury, but really making sure that these student athletes come over here, have a great experience from a standpoint of garnering any form of information they can to be able to take with them for the rest of their life.
I know there's a couple of elements you give us a little insight that you look to. One is I like how you have the fact of two in particular that come to the forefront. One is minimizing, and that is minimizing the risk of injury that I know is a big part of your mission. And then also on the other side of that, be able to accomplish that is to maximize the athletic potential. Just to give us just a little perspective, a little insight about that and how you see it and how those two intertwine.
Absolutely. So, we always talk about it all the time. Our number one goal is to try to get our athletes to be as relatively resistant to injuries as possible. And we feel like if we're doing a good job at training our student athletes to be that way, then they'll end up being better athletes because of it, right? And so, we're trying to figure out different ways to have our athletes utilize ground-based, three-dimensional multi-joint movements where, they're becoming more efficient and effective force applicators into the ground, that they have the ability to move in all three planes of movement, whether it's the frontal, sagittal, or transverse planes, and they can kind of stabilize in all aspects of all movement. That they're able to kind of move through certain basic human movement patterns in a way that's efficient, effective, and if we're doing those things, they're going to be much more resistant to injuries, but, whether that's non-contact injuries, contact injuries, you name it. And then simultaneously, we feel like if they're able to do those things really well, then they have to become better athletes.
Do you see at this point in the season, so much of the strength and conditioning coach's role, you're the guy, you're the smiling face that these guys, I know that a lot of times they see at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. Over the course of training in the off season. What about now, James? Is this more the easy part, the fun part, if you will, to be able to work with these guys now and say, hey, it's 2 weeks to get a piece of that Ivy League championship. This is what you've worked for. Is that something now you say, well, this is why we put in all that time when people don't see that time that happens back in August or in May?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is we try to talk about all the time is just going 1-0. Right, so we tell them all the time, hey, yes, we control our own destiny now, which we didn't do a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
Now we control our own destiny, but our first step has to become being 1-0, right? And that starts with being 1-0 today in terms of winning today's practice, winning the film sessions, winning everything today, and then hopefully that carries over to Saturday where we can hopefully then go 1-0, and then we can focus on the next step, which would be Yale after that, But we don't want to get caught up in the trap of looking ahead, being like, oh, we just got to win 2 games and, then we're champions. We kind of had that last year, right? You had to win 1 of 2
That's right.
to become Ivy champions, and unfortunately we don't win either one of them, and so we want to make sure that we're focused on the singular task at hand of first winning today, and then hopefully letting that today carry over to Saturday.
Indeed. Experience being a hard teacher, and look no further. All the veteran guys in this team, you can look right back to last year and take that lesson to heart.
Exactly.
Indeed the case. And win the day is a good philosophy for Harvard football under your direction as a strength and conditioning coach and the guy that gets these guys ready. And it is for everybody, for me and for everybody else, James, and words to live by and words that you can certainly employ in your life to excel. And absolutely appreciate that. And want to thank you, James, very much for coming on to join us. It was really a pleasure today, and best of luck with you, the Crimson, getting these guys ready to, ready for today, tomorrow, and then on to Saturday in Penn.
Yeah, we truly appreciate it, Bernie. Thank you so much. James
Frazier, Harvard Crimson's Director of Strength and Conditioning, of course, for the Harvard football team. Here, our guest in our special segment this week on Inside Harvard Football.